What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, we got something new here. Something back in Australia. I came across this video and I was looking for a video, and we got why Australia would be the world's new energy superpower. And I've said this before in other videos and stuff, just how the world is changing. The energy, we already got the electric cars coming up. Before you know it, I'm sure they're going to be flying later. We got the solar panel, we got solar everything. So, the world is changing right before our eyes. And, energy is the new thing. Energy is the new thing. So we're going to see why Australia finna be the superpower, though, of this. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Let's check it out. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments about this video. Y'all can go check out the original video on the Fully Charged Show. So they got it
Take
lit
one,
up in here.
action.
That's pretty loud. Australia
has
Rosie
abundant
Barnes.
sunshine, strong winds and vast size. There is no doubt that Australia could be at the forefront of the energy transition. But until now, we lagged a little behind other countries. In 2021, Australia got 29% of its electricity from renewable sources, compared to Denmark's 74% and Iceland's impressive 100%. So, can Australia make up for lost time and become a leader in the green revolution? I think the answer is a solid yes. Welcome to the Fully Charged Show.
Like the Fully Charged Show? Then you will love our 6 live shows being held around the world in
I need
2023,
to check this out.
starting with Sydney, Australia on March the 11th and 12th.
Hold up, I might have to get involved with this so I can travel to these events.
Do we have enough
That would be
solar and
cool.
wind to power our whole economy? And to get it, would we have to fully tile our deserts in solar panels and plaster our coastline with wind turbines? Well, it's nothing like that. Australia gets so much sun and is so big that we would only need 0.1% of our land covered in solar panels to generate all our energy from solar. For wind, it's about double that. And that's just sticking to onshore wind. If we consider offshore wind too, it's going to be even less. And of course, the land you use for wind and solar doesn't need to exclude other activities on the land. You can put solar panels on roofs and wind turbines in farmland. So even those tiny fractions are misleadingly large. It's fair to say that we have way more than enough wind and solar potential to scale up to 100% renewable electricity if the appetite is there to install it. Fully renewable electricity sounds intimidating, but it's actually not that much more than what we're already doing. In the last 12 months, Australia got about 35% of our electricity from renewable sources.
Nice.
So
That's
roughly
good. That's a good
speaking, we're
amount.
going to need to triple that to get to 100%. That 35% was...
Iceland, I never knew that. Iceland at 100%. That is crazy, but I just know that sun different in Australia, so we'll probably get to that 100% in no time, just because it's probably the sun just beaming a little stronger down there.
made up of 13% from wind energy, 9% from rooftop solar, and 6% from utility scale solar farms. And the rest was hydro at 8%. There's no way we can triple our existing hydro capacity. We're not likely to add any more dams, since our mountains are pretty much all in national parks and we can't really make it rain any more than it does, though we do try. So that leaves wind and solar to take us from their current 28% up to 92% of electricity. Rooftop solar is currently at 28 gigawatts total capacity, which is the result of a staggering 1 in 3 households with solar panels.
And look at all these houses, because we've had people come to our house, maybe 2 or 3 since we bought it, and they try to get us to do the solar thing, but I don't know. I haven't looked into doing the solar thing for the house. I think they were saying it would be like a flat rate type of thing. It wouldn't be like, but I don't know. If you got solar panels on your house, let me know how that works for you. Like, do you love it? Do you rather, do it the original regular way or the solar way? But
even without adding extra
cool
incentives, rooftop solar is expected to almost triple today's levels by 2030. And for utility scale wind and solar, there's currently 17 gigawatts of capacity that gives us 21% of our energy. And there is a huge pipeline of another 17 gigawatts of projects that have reached financial close. So that's already a doubling in capacity, pretty much ready to go, which should take us up to 2/3 of our electricity from just solar and onshore wind without really any extra effort. And looking further, to get an idea of what the pathway to 100% renewables and beyond looks like, there are several published projections and scenarios. The Australian Energy Market Operator's latest integrated system plan has a step change scenario, which is a projection of where industry experts think we're headed. They expect renewables to make up 83% of our electricity by 2030 and 98% by 2050.
Wow.
According to this projection, in
That might
2050,
get there
two-thirds of
quicker.
houses will have rooftop solar, and the combined capacity will increase by nearly 5 times.
Wow.
And utility scale wind and solar will increase by 9 times from today's levels. Remember, that's a projection of industry expectations, not a target or even a plan.
It could exceed. You just never know.
83% renewable electricity by 2030 does match the Australian government's target. However, the target came from the step change scenario and not the other way around. So if we have the appetite to be even a little bit more ambitious, a scenario has been published for that too. Transgrid have developed a deep decarbonisation scenario in which our electricity system is powered by 100% renewable energy from 2035 and net negative emissions beyond that. But if 100% renewable electricity was so easy, we'd already be doing it. So what's the catch?
That's true.
Well, there are two main ones, time and location. To get to a 100% renewable electricity grid, it's not enough to have enough renewables on average. We need it when and where we want to use it. Let's start with the time part of this problem, what we're going to do about the variability of wind and solar power. We know that solar panels don't generate any power at night,
Right.
and not as much on cloudy days, and it isn't windy every day or even every week. So while last year we generated 35% of our electricity from renewables on
wind.
average, at any given moment it ranged from 1.6% on a windless winter evening to 66% at noon on a spring day. So if we just triple the solar and wind that we've already got, we wouldn't get to a 100% renewable electricity grid. Rather, we'd range from about 5% to 200% renewables, depending on the
Oh.
weather. To deal with below average times,
And that was my problem when I was thinking about it, because I'm like, in the summertime, it could get hot here in Texas in the summertime, but after summer, like, it's really not that hot. Like, sometimes the sun out, but sometimes the sun just be playing most times. Like, and that's why I was, how much energy are you going to get just for those, 3 months of summer? You know?
either we need to have an
That's the
excess
thing,
of
that's what I'm
capacity
thinking.
or we need storage. That'll be mostly pumped hydro and batteries, and we'll likely need renewable gas alternatives like green hydrogen or biogas, perhaps along with some emerging storage technologies. The amount of storage that we need is the topic of much vigorous debate, with rigorous studies giving a large range, saying we need between 15 to 50 gigawatts and 300 to 650 gigawatt hours. But that's so much less than a simple back of the envelope calculation might tell you. I often see comments on social media that suggest we need several weeks worth of storage to deal with the wind and sun droughts. For Australia, that would be close to 10,000 gigawatt hours.
Wow.
That's a huge number, very close to the whole
Dang.
world's current storage capacity. But while the studies vary in how much storage they say we need, none of them are even 1/10 of that amount. We're not talking about weeks of energy storage, we're talking less than a day in realistic net zero scenarios. That's because in Australia, we simply do not see long periods with absolutely no wind and no sun. While the sun sets at night, the wind doesn't go down when the sun goes down. And though it might not be windy here today, it's likely windy somewhere. This is where Australia's
That's true.
huge geography really helps us. The east coast of Australia is connected by a 5,000 kilometre transmission line, which is one of the world's longest. So if you look at Australia's main electricity grid, the National Energy Market, or NEM, you'll see that the amount of wind and
need to
solar
check that
across the
out.
whole grid isn't nearly as variable as your local weather forecast. And the longer the period of time that you look at, the higher the minimum renewables proportion gets. Put simply, it's incredibly rare
these
that we see
temperatures.
cloudy, windless conditions across the whole of
Yeah.
the Australian east coast for even a day or two. The AEMO ISP report includes resilience modelling that looks at 40 years of historical long, dark and still periods, aka Dunkelflaute, to give it the more catchy
Dunkelflaute?
German term. Dunkelflaute in Australia are only
Wait a minute, what does that mean?
aka Dunkelflaute,
Period time with little no, it can be.
to give it the
okay.
more catchy German term.
Dunkelflaute.
Dunkelflaute in Australia are only
Dunkelflaute.
days long, and the report notes that they tend to be localised with low risk of a grid-wide event. So as long as transmission is in place to connect Queensland renewables to a Dunkelflaute in the southern states, system reliability can be maintained at the current standard of 99.998% with a lot less storage than you might think. Okay, cue the next complaint that I commonly hear from naysayers.
Complaint.
Even the low estimates are way more than the whole world's grid-scale batteries put together. There isn't enough lithium or other critical minerals to make that many batteries for Australia's storage needs, let alone the whole world's. Well, I have two answers to that. One, lithium-ion batteries aren't the only form of electricity storage. We've got pumped hydro, virtual power
Pumped
plants,
hydro.
vehicle-to-grid, interconnectors, different battery chemistries, and all sorts of other things that we should explore in future episodes. Let us know in the comments the ones that you want to
Dang,
hear
I might
about.
have to check out some more from that
But
channel.
when it does come to lithium-ion batteries and the materials we need to make them, that's yet another example of Australian abundance. It's almost like there's a theme emerging. There are 10 minerals needed to make lithium-ion batteries, and Australia produces 9 of them. The 10th mineral is graphite, which we have reserves of but haven't started producing at volume yet. Australia currently produces half of the world's lithium and has the second largest reserves of cobalt.
Dang.
However, we're not really making the most of this yet. Only a tiny fraction of the total value of batteries is captured by Australia because we don't do much of the work to make them. We pretty much just dig up rocks and send them to China for processing. We could increase the value Australia gets from its mineral resources by adopting more sustainable production methods, ethical supply chains, and processing the materials we mine too. Progress is underway here, but it's early days. Mining is one of the great contributors to Australia's energy usage at around 10% of the nation's total energy.
What part is that at?
But Australia's renewable energy potential will allow us to make this a greener end-to-end process. For example, by switching mining operations and transport to electric vehicles. So that's the time part of the challenge taken care of by energy storage, for which we have plenty of pumped hydro potential, and for batteries we have enough critical minerals to take care of Australia's needs and export too. But that still leaves the second challenge of location. I mentioned that one of the reasons we'll need less storage than you might think is due to our very spread out geography. That's a huge advantage for smoothing variable renewable generation. But it's also a disadvantage as we need to connect all of these future wind and solar farms in remote locations. Australia's low population...
Where is this solar farm located? This is my first time seeing something like that. Like, around my town, we have certain parts... probably by my old high school, they have like a little area where it's like, you know... few solar panels out there, and I want to say there's some on top of the school buildings as well. It's been a minute since I've been over there, guys. My fault, but because the school is in its own area, but I've never seen this many in one place.
Density tends to make transmission expensive per person. Not to mention the possibility for transmission bottlenecks if large amounts of renewable electricity are trying to get through existing lines. But here we have a problem that also creates opportunity for localized generation and storage. This means rooftop solar, household and community batteries, plus renewable energy zones or RESs. These bring together wind farms, solar farms and storage in one area with shared transmission to connect to the grid. And there are other opportunities. Australia has incredible amounts of solar and wind potential in the outback, which is hard to use domestically because it's so remote. That doesn't mean it's out of reach though. There are some bold projects happening to find ways to export these resources. Some of these plants are huge, with over 20 gigawatts of combined wind and solar planned in the biggest of them. They use emerging technologies like ultra-long distance HVDC cables to transport electricity, or they plan to produce green hydrogen for export as either hydrogen or ammonia. No doubt the challenge is big, but given Australia's natural resources and size, it's not insurmountable. As I mentioned at the start, there are other countries who are already close to 100% renewables, so we won't be the first to do that. But what's exciting for us...
I did see something, I might have checked out the video for Denmark about something like maybe solar energy. I want to say, I need to check out the Iceland
Australia
one.
Is that we're likely to be the first to do it mostly with wind and solar, highly variable resources. Hydropower and geothermal can act a lot like traditional generators, so for countries blessed with those resources, it's arguably more straightforward to get a highly renewable system working. Australia isn't actually leading in variable renewables yet either. Denmark has over 50% of electricity from wind and solar, far ahead of where we stand today. But we have one distinguishing feature where
I ain't gonna lie, Denmark doing something different. Denmark nice. Denmark, they different over there. They're pretty cool people too. I have some on this channel, they're pretty cool. But Denmark is one of those, with Australia, you know, of course, top 5 places to live type of thing, but Denmark is a game changer.
Electricity island. Denmark can share their surplus electricity with their neighbours on very windy days, and they can bring in electricity during their dunkelflaute. So when we get to 100% renewable electricity, it will be all on us. The solutions we develop will be needed by other countries who plan to use mostly solar and wind. And that will be most countries, because solar and wind makes up the bulk of generation in most global net zero scenarios. We're starting to make fast progress. We're installing wind and solar power faster than ever, and if we continue at the current rate, we'll have tripled variable renewable capacity from today's levels by 2030, Records are being broken every year, with 2/3 of our power coming from renewables one afternoon last October. South Australia are moving even faster, and they have already gone over 100% renewable for whole days at a time and a massive 10 days in a row last December.
Wow, dang.
So that's pretty good
South
progress for a country
Australia.
whose governments have
Nice.
historically been pretty conservative about the energy transition. For the most part, this hasn't been driven by policy. It's been driven by Australian abundance. However, there's another form of energy that Australia has in abundance too, coal, which still makes up over half of our electricity generation. Is it really conceivable that our amazing renewable potential will be enough to topple coal? Guess what? It's already happening. Coal plant closures are constantly being announced years earlier than originally planned due to competition from renewable energy and operational pressures associated with the transition. About a third of the current coal-fired generation capacity will close by 2030 based on announcements so far, and this is expected to rise to nearly 2/3.
30%
For me,
pretty
these
high,
early
though.
coal closures are the most promising sign that Australia's energy transition is unstoppable. No one is forcing them to close or paying them to close. It's not happening because of government policies. It's simple economics. Adding more renewables is now cheaper than continuing to run existing coal plants. I love that because it means we don't need to convince anyone to pay more to save the climate. And that's why I think Australia's place as a leader in the energy transition is guaranteed.
People gonna need a job though. That's what I'm thinking about. You know, it might be a need. People need a job. I'm sure they can still transition, find a job, but that's pretty incredible. I like seeing stuff like that. You know, I like I told you, I started in engineering and stuff when I went to college, and I'd be so amazed just by how those different type of things work. Just because I've seen it. Like I had an idea. I don't even know if they doing it yet. Somebody probably, you know, I had it in my head. I didn't put it into action. I just had it, you know, because I didn't know what to do. But I'm like, if a battery have a lot of power, it can possibly transfer power to another phone, or, you know, a battery, or it can charge itself. A battery could charge itself, right? If it gets the right heat or the right conductor, could it possibly? You may never know. You may never know how technology and all that stuff work. All these energies and you just never know. But we finna go to the Jetsons. I'm telling y'all, we went from the Flintstone age now to the Jetsons age. So that's what it did. But y'all let me know what y'all think about the solar energy. You use solar panels and stuff. We had the opportunity, but I'm like, nah, I don't know, because the sun here, summertime for sure, but I wasn't sure. Me personally, I wasn't sure, so that's why I was like, I don't know. Need to look up more information on it, but guys, that's all I have for this video. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think. Send me some more requests. You know, if you're into this stuff, you're not, it's okay. Just send me something. I'll check it out. Shout out to Denmark being mentioned. Iceland. Great countries. But y'all be blessed. Be the best and be you. I'm out.